The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Podcast. It's another edition of The Big Issue. And of course, as usual, we have an in-house analyst here. Together, we are going to be interrogating the big issue of the day, which is drug tests for political appointees and contestants for political offices. Of course, with me here in the studio, we have Paul Agbo.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And Tunde Oguntola.
Thank you for having me.
I'm your regular host, George Agba is my name. And for the big issue of the day, in Kano, the state government announced on Monday that all contestants for executive offices of the All Progressive Congresses in the state will have to undergo drug test. The Commissioner for Information in the state, Muhammad Garba, said all contestants are to visit the state drug law enforcement agency starting from today to closing of the screening of congresses to undergo drug test for political appointees and all contestants for the congresses. And of course, this is coming sequel to other drug tests undergone by local government election candidates and even some past elections that had been held in the state. And of course, the thing has elicited different views and reactions from most Nigerians. Some Nigerians see it as a welcome development because it will help in sanitizing the governance processes. Of course, some people say that drug tests for political appointees and for contestants will help get rid of bad eggs from the system. But some Nigerians are saying that the process is a political tool to bar certain people from participating in elections, seeking for political offices. Well, Paul, you can imagine the situation, the big issue of the day, that political appointees, contestants should undergo drug test. And I think this thing started from where the former chairman of the Economic and Financial Commission, Farida Waziri, had recommended drug tests for politicians, especially those contesting for political offices.
George, you are going too far.
Mm.
The chairman of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, has been advocating drug tests for students, for couples going into marriage. He has been talking about this drug test not today. I think what the Kano state government is doing is just to buy. They just took a lead from what Buba Marwa has been advocating all this while. Well, they have their own problem in Kano state. I don't want to generalize it that it's a northern Nigeria problem, and I think they are trying to address a local problem, which is the abuse of drug. And one of the commonest drug consumed or abused in Nigeria remains cannabis and tramadol. So from what they are seeing in Kano, must have informed them that look, before as part of the recruitment process of the leadership, whether the party leadership, the local government leadership, and the rest, aspirants must go for that test. And I think from the result of the test conducted on aspirants for local government election, they said about 13 aspirants returned positive. And that must have informed the reason why this decision to subject. Nothing goes without political coloration. Even members of the APC will feel that, look, it's a plot to shelve some of them aside. Because at the end of the day, if you I was just seeing in one of the media report just a few hours ago that somebody was lamenting that he only the highest thing he has taken in his life is a cigarette, and he was returned positive. So issues like this will come up. But when you looking at the positive angle, I think the government just trying to sanitize itself by having people with sound mind, not people that will take decision for millions of Kano people. As a result, all their decision will be influenced by the kind of thing they take, the substances they take. I think they are trying to avoid that. It's a good thing. It has its own advantage, but it has drawbacks. Politically, it will be seen as a witch hunt. It's a systematic way of shoving some people aside.
Well, at the commencement of the governor's second term, commissioners, advisors, assistants, and other political appointees were subjected to that test. And of course, the argument here is that the same thing, because the same thing happened in the last local government election in the state. So now, has anything changed in Kano State under the Ganduje administration in terms of governance,
in terms of delivering
of the dividends of democracy and good governance?
Well, I'm not in a position to assess development in Kano State. But I know Kano is one of the progressive states. But the state has not been doing well in terms of revenue generation, because Kano is almost 3 times the size of the Kano city, the metropolis is almost 3 times the size of Kaduna, and Kaduna makes more revenue annually than Kano. So it shows that something is wrong. But in terms of delivering the actual So for that one, I cannot assess that, Judge.
Well, the idea of former EFCC chairman Farida Waziri recommending drug tests for political office holders and the rest, in her own opinion, was that it was going to curb corruption. To what extent has Ganduje tackled corruption in Kano State with this new policy?
Well, when it comes to issue of corruption is not tied only to drug abuse or substance abuse, going to the fact that if you are corrupt, you are corrupt. So many factors has made Nigerian politicians to be corrupt, not just drug abuse. Perhaps, except I believe cocaine is one of the most expensive drugs that is being abused. Other drugs like I think cocaine and other narcotics, while Indian hemp and the likes of tutolin, benylin, and all the rest that have been abused are cheap drugs that are sold for 200 to 500 naira. So that you cannot, because of, yes, you are largely dependent on drugs, so you will not go and steal public funds to purchase drugs. However, what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that drug abuse is something that is totally bad. However, the United Nations recommend that drug abuse should be seen as a health challenge, not an offense. Anybody who abuses drugs should be rehabilitated and not be treated as an offender.
As a criminal.
Yes. Because, okay, when you said you are guilty and you test positive for drugs, sequel to this, you will not participate in this election. You've already persecuted that person based on the fact that he cannot. Okay, yes, if he tests positive for drugs, why not to rehabilitate him and make it better for the society.
But you see,
Same way,
sorry to cut you short.
Yes.
Why I think they treat those who abuse drugs as criminals is because they feel that it is these drugs that aid and fuel criminality, both in the society and in governance.
Well, while you might be very right that yes, taking of drugs aids criminality, very sure. If you go to drug cartel, even within the FCT Metro Police, you will find out that most of these drug barons. I was even sitting with one of the local vigilante group. He said one of the drug barons go to the extent of paying for whatever they stole. Said in fact there was a case where 60,000 naira was and 2 mobile phones was collected from a lady who reported the case to their office. And after tracing the issue, they discovered that the boy in question do patronize a drug cartel within the neighborhood. On getting there, the baron who do sell the drugs for them pay that money. I should believe that the drug baron is not running a charity organization. The offender who was caught must surely pay back. Is he working? No. He will go and commit crime to get back the money to repay back to the baron, or else, as bad as it is, if he said he will not sell drugs to him, he might not be able to cope. He might not be able to survive. Back to the Gandhiji ideology, I don't think it should treat people who test positive for drugs that yes, you cannot contest for election. I think there should be a proper policy to ensure that you test positive for drugs. Which kind of drugs? How is it? Is it really affecting your mental capacity or your judgment? If no, then you should not subject that person. If that person, I believe its own situation is okay, maybe your mental capacity cannot make you to be in the leadership position. So I think you should just oppose all this and make a right decision and not just using it as a victimization tool.
Yeah. Well, before we look at this issue again from another angle, I think we'll just have to take a short break. And before we do that, I urge you, our viewer, to contribute to this program by way of comments. Comments, of course, in the past have actually helped greatly in shaping the conversation on the big issue. And as we come back, we expect that you would have actually had your comment, either observation or questions. We'll be very, very ready to entertain them. Don't go offline. We'll be back in a moment.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome back. We are still on the big issue in Leadership Podcast. And of course, the big issue of the day is drug test for political appointees and contestants for political offices. Well, Paul, in the past, issues popped up from that policy by Kano state government. Some politicians said that there was bias in that test, a situation where people who test positive and were disqualified from contesting were later went doing another drug test and they were tested negative. So most Nigerians believe that it is a political tool to prevent certain persons from holding political office.
I've said it on this platform that in politics, it doesn't matter how your enemy died. The fact that he's dead, whether it's by butchering, by gunshot, by mere campaign smearing, or bad press. The fact the person goes down is a victory to the opponent. So in this case, yes, it could be used as a political tool to prevent certain passive popular candidates who are seen as threats. Even within the APC, there are some people who will not be comfortable with certain caliber of persons within the party and are aspiring to occupy public position in the party. In this case now, we're talking about APC Congress. Yeah. So who say the governor does not feel threatened by the emergence of one or two persons there? Who say certain political bigwig chieftains in the party don't feel threatened by the emergence or the interest shown by certain candidates? And so some candidates will be seen as being loyal to certain faction. You know, in politics, there are subtle wars goes on even within the same political party, and that is why after congresses you will see a lot of appeals here and there. Some people will be crying that look, they will shortchange and this and that. We cannot completely separate political rivalry in this case. But the question now is, George, why is it that drugs are consumed in Nigeria and other nations around the world? Today, the NDLEA is lamenting that Nigeria has become a major hub for transportation of drugs.
Transit country.
Yes, a transit country. From South America to Nigeria, then from Nigeria to Ethiopia to Europe. Things like that. Look at, as of July, the NDLEA reported that it had arrested over 5,000 offenders, convicts 500. Look, see, the most interesting fact remains that NDLEA seized over 90 billion naira worth of drugs. 90 billion. That's more than the budget of some states in Nigeria. 90 billion naira. Who are the people consuming these drugs? Who are the people creating the market for these drugs? Are they poor people? Are they middle-level people? Or the rich? You and I know that cocaine can only be bought, or it's only the rich that can afford cocaine. Even it's only the middle-level persons or people that can afford cannabis. The cheapest one is this tramadol and
even the cocaine in long run will later put you into trouble.
So who are the people consuming it? Although it has its own merit, I think the NDLEA will be very happy. It's a good press for NDLEA, and because they are using NDLEA lab. It's a good press for NDLEA. But politically, politicians will see it as a witch hunt.
Sorry to cut you short. That reminds me again. You see, what some politicians are saying is that even with the policy on ground and some of the exercise being conducted in the past, where in local government election, the contestant had to undergo drug tests, and even in the governor's second term, commissioners, special advisors, assistants were subjected to that test. But they say nothing has changed, because now most of the governor's aides and the commissioners who are drug free, they do worse things.
Yes.
And even people that are said that have been tested for drugs. So at the end of the day, the idea that you must undergo that drug test has not brought any meaningful impact to governance.
What me I will subscribe to is mental
test.
It's mental test, not drug test. It's mental test. Because the psychology of an individual matters, especially somebody going into leadership position that will take decision that has implication on the generality of the populace. Such a person must be sound mentally. This drug test is like, some of these machines are so sensitive. If you are a regular tobacco user, it might show positive, and you'll be screened out. The worst is that if the news will go around that is a drug pusher, not even a consumer, he's a drug pusher. These are some of the implications. 10 years after, if you are somebody that was tested positive while aspiring to be a councillor, when he wants to contest for governor, somebody will go and bring that matter up. And that is why today, people who make phone call and are arrested by Federal Road Safety Commission official don't want to go for that mental test because they are afraid that in the future, somebody will bring up that issue that that person has mental issue. That's why I recall that he was taken to Federal Medical Center Dabi for mental test. Nobody wants to know that then that he was just making a phone call or perhaps an emergency while driving. So these are some of the issues. It has long-term implication, and that is why some of these politicians are lamenting. So we have to, the government has to be very careful in approaching this matter because it has wider implication.
But most Nigerians are saying that naturally the idea of the drug test, if looked into critically, it's very good because by the time you test for drug and you see that certain people who are naturally not fit to be leaders are weeded out, the country will be better off for it in terms of good governance.
Yeah.
So some of them are even saying that the Kano example, the Kano policy should be made a national policy so that there will be drug tests for politicians vying for the office of president, governor, local government chairman, even up to councillorship position. What do you think, Julie?
Well, when it comes to issue of drug tests, what exactly are you testing for? Are you testing for
See whether you're
alcohol?
mentally fit now. You don't know what it means.
No, when you
You
say
take drugs and your head begin to run.
drugs, okay,
Then
when you
you
take mentally fit.
begin to think.
No, I think let's differentiate this. If you said you are testing for somebody that's fit mentally, is different from when it comes to drug test. You understand me? If you are testing for the fitness, it's totally different.
But I think
that should be
mental
yes.
fitness, testing
Yes.
for mental fitness, I think is synonymous to testing for drugs too. Because
What
if you're testing for
they are
drugs,
doing,
somebody will
what they are
automatically know that you're
specifically-
actually mentally
what
fit.
they are doing in Kano is testing for drug abuse. Maybe if you abuse the substance over time, maybe in the last 3 months to show you. My question is, what exactly are you testing? If someone, okay, now let me even share some forms of drug abuse first. There are some people who pick tom-tom, put it inside a lacasera, and drink it to get high.
And I hear that there's some kind of tires, some kind of
You burn tires,
burn,
gum that's used for mending tires.
Mm.
You see some inhaling this substance, dragging it. Would they also test positive for this drug test? I doubt no, because it's not alcohol.
Are you sure?
There are some people
It's
who,
a substance.
yes, who abuse excretors.
I'm not an expert in that.
You understand?
Not,
There are people who abuse these excretors.
Mm.
And perhaps when go for this test, when it comes to if you are testing for alcohol, all this will not show. So I think we need to be like this. If you are testing position for drugs, you should be very careful not to stigmatize that person. I don't know how they will formulate that policy, how they will do it. But if maybe a 10 contestant seeking for a political office, and maybe 6 out of 10 are said to be positive for the okay, and you remove them, of course, say they'll be stigmatized and discriminated in society. These are all these things that is not okay. Even a recent research even shows that even in an office setting, when you test for drugs, it reduces workers' productivity. You understand that? Okay, they should be free, in as much as it's not affecting the job. However, it should be treated with caution, owing to the fact that if your office turns to a mini cartel, of course there will be fracas, there will be fights. But all this, it has to be supposed well so that we can get it right. Yes, and when if you want to make it now a national policy that all those aspiring for political office should be tested, I think yes, I subscribe to it.
Even appointees.
Should be yes, I subscribe to it. If you are going for a military training, I don't know, but I don't really know how they can really achieve this. If you are going for a military training, for instance, surely you'll be tested for drugs. And once you are positive, you'll be withdrawn out or you'll not be recruited. However, after the 6 months or 5 years or 4 years training, you see this set of recruits who are now officers abusing drugs. Do they have anything to checkmate that now? Not just that, you see some, even a tattoo is not allowed in the military as a recruit. But once you become an officer, you see most of them trying tattoo. At that moment, you cannot stop them. So, same as politicians, how can you achieve this? Can you really ensure that equality is being achieved? And equity, as well as equity, we just have to look at all this before making that a national plan.
But naturally, the idea of drug itself has always been a serious menace in the society, because at the end of the day, it is a societal vice that has actually led to so many things, especially criminality.
Sure.
And of course, just like you try to stop the youth from taking drugs so that we'll have a better society, that is why I think the Kano government is trying to stop.
No, it's very important.
So
It's very
now,
important.
in the event where we now begin to say mental tests and drug tests,
Together.
don't you think doing mental, if going for mental tests, it's the same thing as going for drug tests?
Well,
Because if you fail drug tests, automatically you are failed. Mentally,
What about those who
If you are-
go for mental tests and they will test positive for that, but don't abuse drugs?
because Paul, let me tell you one example.
If you
You know
just
that
allow
somebody
NDLEA
said
to
there's a
use
comment
drugs.
ahead. Somebody said, I think that drug test is necessary because some of these are people in government, ministers, commissioners, even aides to the governors and president. When you see them talk, the way they sound, you will know that they are either suffering from psychogenic disorder or neurogenic disorder. That is why they are encouraging things like this. So that at the end of the day,
George, the
we begin to
NDLEA,
sanitize the governance process in the country.
the NDLEA lamented sometimes ago that 40% of Nigerian youth are deeply involved in drugs. And the youth give birth to the elder. You will have to go through that stage.
Yes.
And you've been taking drugs as a youth.
Mhm.
When you now
Then you are the leader of tomorrow.
Yeah, you are the leader of tomorrow. 40% is a serious problem. I think the government should allow NDLEA to do its work. Government should encourage training and appraisal. Appraise and reappraise. Like what is going on in the presidential villa today, where ministries are being assessed. You appraise, you train, you appraise. Those you found that their input are not up to the standard set by the administration can be either withdrawn or sent for further coaching. And those who cannot meet up at all can be withdrawn from the system. So I will encourage training, then appraisal.
Instead of
this issue
checking
of,
against drug addicts.
allow
in
NDLEA
governance.
to do its job.
Well, that is the much we can take for today's edition of the big issue. And of course, the big issue had been drug tests for political appointees and for contestants for political offices. Well, it is now left for you to use your tongue and count your teeth whether the policy adopted by Kano state government is a good policy to be adopted nationally. Well, let's just draw the curtain on that for now. Thank you, Tunde, for being part of this show. And of course, Paul Agbo.
It's a pleasure.
Of course, I will not forget to thank you, our viewer, for keeping tab with us. Once again, I'm your regular host, George Agba. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of The Big Issue. Have a wonderful day.